friends, I'm Brea, and I've had this goal this year to read 5 iconic sci-fi books. And can you guess how many I've actually read this year? Guess. That's right, 0. So in this video, I'm gonna see how long it takes me to read 3 iconic sci-fi books. This video was actually intended to be something else, which you guys will see later on, but I'm happy with where it ended for sure. And so the 3 books that I'm gonna be reading for this video are The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is one that I feel like comes up on like every single iconic sci-fi. I even know that like in the foreword of this book by Neil Gaiman, or it's like an introduction, he talks about all of like the iconic sci-fi that are a part of this like specialty edition. The only one that I know for sure that's also included in that is like Dune, but this is going to be book number 1. And then book number 2, some people may or may not say that it's sci-fi. I think it is, just based on like some of the reviews that I read and how it's genred on Goodreads and other platforms. And that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So again, I know this is probably a mix of like sci-fi, horror, and other genres, but some people say that this is technically like the first science fiction novel ever. So might as well start at the beginning, right? And then lastly, we have The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I've read from Ray Bradbury before. I read R is for Rocket, and that was one of my favorite sci-fi books ever. And so I'm happy to be picking up another one of his books, but I know The Martian Chronicles is one that people really think about when they think about iconic sci-fi. So I'm glad that I'm finally getting to pick this up as well. And to let you guys know that I'm serious about this goal, I even had like a badge and pinning ceremony with my friends at the beginning of the year where we all came up with the badges that we wanted to earn. The inner Girl Scout in me is just never gonna die, okay? But I have my little book patch here and the little card that goes with it. And this says, the Sci-Fi 5, read 5 classic or influential sci-fi or fantasy novels. And I just realized that says fantasy, so I feel like Frankenstein definitely fits in that. So obviously I won't complete the full goal in this video, but I'll be happy to be making a good dent in it. I mean, the books are all pretty short, so it shouldn't take me that long, right? 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 Okay, so it is day 2 and I'm currently getting ready to go to the Dua Lipa concert with a few friends. I feel like if you watched one of my last vlogs, I also went to a few concerts in that video. Like, I've really just been churning out the concerts recently and I love that for me. But I'm also about 3 chapters into The Left Hand of Darkness, and I definitely have some comments. I feel like it's so funny because this book was written in 1969, and the author's note at the beginning of the book, what were y'all putting Miss Ursula K. Le Guin through? Because her whole author's note is essentially like, please remember, this is a work of fiction. Science fiction. She's like, science fiction writers don't predict the future. We're not trying to tell you guys what the future should look like. This is just fiction, and some things that we write about literally are just like kind of made up, and some of them are based on like our present times and what we see. She touches on the fact that some of the characters are androgynous, and she's like, I'm not saying that as a society we should lean this way, or that's what it's going to be like in the future. This is just kind of how I made the characters to reflect certain things I'm seeing in the present. And so I just thought that was interesting because this book was written in 1969, and I could see that if this book was written today, people would maybe have the same complaints and the same comments, which is pretty sad actually. But the book so far I think is fine. But I will say, I think our generation, me clearly included, is a lot more stupid than they were in 1969. And I say that because the writing of this, I think if it were to come out today, people would be lost. And I feel like we're kind of seeing that right now with Calabasas by R.F. Kuang, where I haven't read the book, but I feel like there's like some discourse about feeling like you have to be more academic to really grasp the book. I feel like people kind of had that critique about Babel too, which I know I was holding on for dear life on Babel. But it's like, if they feel that way about something like Calabasas, then I feel like they definitely would for The Left Hand of Darkness, or something that's written like this. I am following it, but I feel like most of the reason that I'm able to keep up is because I'm listening to it on audio and reading it physically, and that's helping me kind of comprehend, because the language isn't necessarily what I'm used to. So my battery's about to die, so hopefully I can get through this. But we're essentially following this character. He's an alien, and he's essentially on this planet trying to convince the people that, like, you should let us help you guys, so that you guys can become more important to essentially all of the galaxy. Obviously, they're not having it. They want to keep the control within like their planet. So I can't say that I'm necessarily like enjoying it so far, but like I'm keeping up, right? Because it's taking some brain power just to keep up. But my friends will be here in about 15 minutes, so I'm gonna quickly continue trying to get ready, and hopefully when I get back tonight I'll have maybe like 30 to 45 minutes to read before I need to lay down. Luckily I am working from home tomorrow, so I have like an extra 45 minutes of sleep, which I'm always thankful for. But I will give you guys another update once I have one.
Lights out, I'm your favorite. Too many ways, been in your place, there's delays. Add it up, plus sign, zeros on the table. Driving and vibing, bring the beat later. Wanna make it bigger, just a little bit of flavor showing up to my space, I'm a fashion dealer. I'm your biggest bidder, meet me in the middle.
Okay, y'all, it is Wednesday, day 3, and I'm still only like 60 pages into The Left Hand of Darkness. I read for about an hour during my lunch today, but I plan on reading a bit more tonight. I just got back from the gym-ish, and it's about 8:30, and I'm just now really getting my dinner made for tonight. Typically, I have like a pre-made meal service, but for the month of October, I'm really trying to focus on like whole foods, and so I'm cooking myself, which it's only October 1st, and I feel like I have regrets because it's 8:30 and the meat isn't even really defrosted yet, so. But I'm just making a like simple like taco bowl, nothing crazy. I'm cutting some vegetables down here. Oh, the concert last night was really good. I feel like Dua Lipa is like who I think I am when I'm in my mirror thinking I'm a pop star, because she doesn't really dance a whole lot, but she be hitting that walk. Okay, I be, and I love that for her. Her facials, the hairography, it's giving. The dance moves, not so much. But that's okay. We can't be good at everything. And she already looks like that and sounds like that. So like God had to humble her somewhere, you know? But The Left Hand of Darkness, I really don't have too much to update you guys on yet, because I'm still hanging on for dear life. I'm hanging on, which is the important part, but like barely. The only thing I can really update you guys on is that we've learned a little bit more about the androgyny of the people of this planet. The people don't stay like one sex permanently, so it sounds like they kind of fluctuate between the two, and essentially you're kind of looked at as like a weirdo if you stay in one state permanently or for too long. They have all of these like complicated names for all of this. This is me trying to explain it in a way that makes sense to me. Again, I'm only like 65 pages in, and the book is like 280 pages, so like I'm struggling a bit, but I'm hoping to get at least an hour of reading done tonight. I do have to go into work in the morning pretty early, so I'm not gonna stay up too late. Going to finish up dinner and get some reading done, and I'll come back hopefully with a bigger chunk of the book read. Ooh, okay, I am very shiny after a very long day at work, but I did want to pop in and say that I am officially at a page 107 in The Left Hand of Darkness. I did the bulk of that reading last night. I had a busy day at work, so I didn't have time to read during my lunch. But I think so far there's still really not much to update you on. I will say that now, because we have lent a little further into like this idea of androgyny, I'm learning a little bit more about the purpose of that and some of the social commentary that Miss Ursula is trying to portray. And we're really starting to like hit on some of the social commentary around if like sex could be fluid and you go from man to woman and all of what that would kind of mean for society. And I think that's actually really interesting. I think some really good points are being made in here. I'm still not 100% sure where this book is going though. I'm still not sure what the point is quite yet, but there is something about the way the story is being told that I'm intrigued by. I feel like if anybody else may have written this, I would be very close to DNFing, but there's something about it that's like making me hold on even though I'm struggling through the book. You know, sometimes I feel like books should challenge you, right? Whether that's challenging your ideals, whether that's just challenging how you perceive books and how certain things are written. And so this is challenging me a bit. I can't say that I'm like overly enjoying it, but it's challenging me in a way that I appreciate. So I have 140-ish pages left because today is day 4. I'm really hoping to get through most of this tonight so that we can move on to the other 2 books tomorrow and through the rest of the weekend. And you know, I was gonna get on here and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's day 4 and I haven't finished a book, but like this is pretty realistic for me, like just depending on what's going on in my life, like that's just how it is. And I always just want to remind people, like, you can do it all. Just make sure that you're staying balanced. Make sure that reading still feels enjoyable. It should never feel like a chore. But I do get most of my reading done over the weekend. And while I have some weekend plans, I'm excited and looking forward to just like sitting down with a good book. Woo child, I feel like if there was a dictionary that had ripping and running in it, my picture would be there this week. I have just been going, especially today. I woke up, I had to go to a bridesmaid's appointment where we were trying on bridesmaid dresses. And then I went to my goddaughter's 2nd birthday, hence the shirt. And obviously all of those things are such great occasions to celebrate. But I also went to IKEA. I did a little bit of grocery shopping and I'm a little pooped. I canceled a few things that I was supposed to be doing tomorrow because other than talking to y'all, I need to be nonverbal. It was a long but very good day. I always enjoy celebrating my friends and family. But because I was also doing a lot of driving, I did finish The Left Hand of Darkness. I finished it via audio and I really had to kind of sit and think about my thoughts and how I wanted to review this, right? But I read a few reviews because I just wasn't sure if I was missing something in the book. But after reading those reviews, like I realized I didn't. It just maybe just didn't have a big of an impact on me as it did some other readers. And honestly, I feel like this has been such an important work of science fiction because it really leans into gender fluidity, being asexual, not being man or woman, and them kind of going in between both when it's time to like reproduce. And so I thought that was really interesting. I think this also talks a lot about like culture and having to navigate your way around a new culture, which I really enjoyed. I think it talks about how do you trust somebody like that's new to the culture or that you're new to their culture, the story of friendship and love. So there was a lot of good to get out of this. However, I will say that with any science fiction, I tend to not like when books throw a whole bunch of world building at you in a way that leaves the reader a little confused. Like if you're gonna use brand new terms to the English language, you gotta explain it a little bit more. And while there is like a little something in the book that kind of helps you piece together what some of these terms mean, I didn't realize that until like 75% of the way into the book. And so I was just kind of trying to go with the flow, trying to figure it out. And you do get acclimated to some of the words, but I just don't prefer when authors do that. And so it did make the book a little hard to read, I'm not gonna lie. But I understand why this is so hyped. I appreciate that it pushed me and that was new for its time for sure. And so I think I'm gonna give this a 3.5. And usually when I rate things 3.5, it's a good book. There were things that I enjoyed, but I may not think about it ever again. And so that's where this kind of falls for me, which is kind of unfortunate, but I'm just glad that I finally got through it, to be honest. But because I've been running around all day and really all weekend, I think I'm just gonna take the next 45 minutes to like decompress a little bit, finish my little strawberry vanilla poppy, and then we're gonna get back into it because I do want to at least start Frankenstein tonight. And I also need to work on editing this week's video. So I still got a lot to do, but I need a little time just to rest for a second.
Lights out, I'm your favorite. Too many ways, been in your place, there's delays. Add it up, plus sign, zeros on the table. Driving and vibing, bring the beat later. Wanna make it bigger, just a little bit of flavor showing up to my space, I'm a fashion dealer. I'm your biggest bidder, meet me in the middle. I just stop.
So at this point, the video concept is gonna have to change. Originally, this video was gonna be reading 3 sci-fi in 7 days. Clearly, you guys have seen that is now not the title of the video. I'm not sure what it will be at this point, but we clearly have not read 3 books in 7 days. Because listen, this week has drained me. Like even today, I am fighting going to bed at 6 p.m. Our company always goes really big for United Way, and I love volunteering. I love giving back. And if I can do that through my job, I think that's phenomenal. And so I definitely try and volunteer every year. And this year I was a part of the balloon committee for this like big kickoff we do. And I had to stay at work last night until like 7:30. But then I had a friend in town who ended up staying the night at my place, which I'm one of those people that when I have someone else in the bed, I just tend to not sleep as good. But we went to dinner before that with another friend, and I woke up tired and then was ripping and running for this kickoff today. And so I'm exhausted and just all the prep that went into that. But I don't want to be a negative Nancy here, okay? But we're still going to read 3 sci-fi books, that's for sure. I've gotten about almost 50 pages into Frankenstein. I feel like this book is going to be a little controversial when it comes to is it sci-fi or not, but I know it's like a blend of genres. It's sci-fi, horror-ish. I'm not feeling the sci-fi yet, but I think where we're going, we're starting to get into Victor's like science-y type of brain right now. I will say the writing in this is a lot more digestible than The Left Hand of Darkness, so I'm very appreciative of that. And the audiobook is actually free on Audible right now, so that also helps me out. I also realized I have multiple copies of Frankenstein. I do like my other copy better, which I don't have right now in front of me, but this just looks shorter, so for my mental health, I have to go with this. But I'm gonna continue reading and then I'll come back to you guys when I have an update and I'm rested. Okay, so I'm officially at volume 2, which is like 80 pages in to Frankenstein. And I'm very quickly realizing that I've actually known nothing about the story of Frankenstein. For some reason, I thought we were gonna get more of Victor Frankenstein, like actually creating Frankenstein. And right now we're just at a place where we actually don't know that much about Frankenstein as a creature. There's like this crime that was committed that Victor's pretty sure that Frankenstein did. But like even at this point, like we aren't even referring to Frankenstein as Frankenstein. It's just his like creation or like this monster. And so this is definitely a very new experience to me. And I just don't know how I've like almost literally heard nothing about this book because it's all new information. But like it's going by pretty quickly. I just have not been in a reading mood. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily in a slump right now. I just have other things I'd rather be doing with my time. And I knew I made a mistake because me and my best friend are rewatching Teen Wolf together right now. And that show has crack in it. I forgot how good that show is. Like, the pacing is so good. You are thrown into the story almost immediately. You're given just enough answers to want to hang on, but enough mystery to want to come back every single episode. The action is hitting. I remember why I was addicted to the show when it first came out when I was in high school, and it's still hitting, okay? And I feel like we just decided to rewatch it because Tyler Posey, the guy who plays Scott, or like the werewolf in the show, he, I think, is creating like another Teen Wolf or something. I'm not sure. But honestly, that's where my love of Dylan O'Brien came into, okay? So you guys are learning a little bit about my lore right now. But I feel like because I've been watching that show, that's been taking a couple hours out of my day where I should be reading. Because honestly, this book, like the rest of this book, should take me like 2 hours to read. So I feel like if I lock in, I may or may not get those 2 hours in tonight because it's already 10:30 and I have to get up and go to work in the morning. But I think I can get at least maybe an hour into this. I need to make some progress because I got plans and I need to be able to stick to them, and that requires me getting this book finished in the next like day or so. Okay, friends, I have just about lost track of days here, but I believe that we are on day 12. And I did finally finish Frankenstein, but I will mention the two little elephants in the room. So I don't know where they went. I think they're both right there. What are you doing? I guess they like to keep each other clean, but the white one back there, that's Callie, and then the little dark one, that's Bailey. Fun fact about me, I am like that friend that will always watch people's dogs. One of my coworkers needed his dogs watched, so I happily volunteered. And really, they have been little angels so far. They're so cute. But Frankenstein, this book isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, and I'm not necessarily mad at that. So I really thought this was going to be kind of like a creepy monster story, but it really ended up being a story about humanity, what it means to be human, and what emotions come with that. I think there's a lot of talk about what it's like to really feel isolated from like the entire world, the feeling that comes with people not really giving you a chance just based off the way that you look, and not really like the content of like who you are. And I just really wasn't expecting that from this book. And I guess in my mind, when I always thought of Frankenstein, I thought Frankenstein was the monster. But I think some things started to click for me because now I feel like I've heard more people say Frankenstein's monster, which makes a little bit more sense. This entire book really was just tragic and sad, but in a way that I do think was really beautiful. I will also say that the audiobook that was on Audible was also really enjoyable. I feel just like the way the narrator was narrating the book, it really just immersed me in the story, which I really enjoyed. But I think I'm gonna give this like a 3.75, 4-star. Listen, at first I was like, am I gonna go into this and feel pressured to give all of these classic books 5 stars? And you know, the feeling is no, like times have changed. I feel like it doesn't say anything about me and who I am as a person if I don't give this book 5 stars. I enjoyed it. 3.75, 4 stars. I honestly just don't know if I will think about this book a whole lot in the future, which is why it's not getting a higher rating, but I did enjoy it. And then next up, and the last book that we're gonna read for this vlog, finally, is the Martian Chronicles. And so because I'm a gravely indecisive person, I actually bought 2 copies from Pango Books. I just didn't know which copy I would prefer. I think this one I'm gonna keep in the package. It's definitely an older version and I really like the way this looks. And then I think I will actually read this version. I like the covers on both. This one is just obviously a little bit more like ratty. So I figured this is the one that I can kind of carry around with me. So I feel like this is the book that I have the highest hopes for because I've read from this author before and I've enjoyed his works. I'm excited about this one. I'll give you guys an update, but I am going to another concert. Listen guys, I know. So looking forward to that, but won't be out too late since I have the 2 little princesses that I have to come back 2. So hopefully I will get some more reading done tonight.
It's all making sense to me. Not a basic, ain't no ordinary. Stay put, we gon' get higher. You're the product, I could be your buyer. Under these lucid dreams, I'm not thinking off my head yet. Just being honest, what's the big difference? Yeah. And I've been feeling my own inertia.
Okay, it is 10 p.m. on whatever day that we're on. I'm so lost at this point, but I'll figure it out because I am almost done with the Martian Chronicles. I really am enjoying this book, but I do just want to say I had a blast at the concert last night, and I just love when bands have like good merch. But if you haven't listened to Ocean Alley, definitely recommend them. They're like an Australian band, and they're doing their North American tour right now. They only have a couple cities left, so if you live in America, not sure when they're coming back. But we had a great time. It was very chill. Loved that. Me and my friend were trying to tally up how many concerts we'll have been to by the end of the year, because we do have a few more this month, and I'm pretty sure it's like 12 or 13, which is like insane. But I'm learning one thing about concerts, especially for like smaller bands, is that people actually talk to each other. They actually dance. They have a good time. Like, I feel like we're really getting closer to third spaces again, and I love that for us. But the Martian Chronicles, so I will say I'm listening to this on audio partially and reading it physically, and I've had to bounce between the two because the audio actually skips some of the stories in here, and then it has additional stories that aren't in here, which I thought was really interesting. But as a synopsis, this book essentially is like a compilation of short stories, but it's done in like chronological order. So it's kind of telling this story of humans from Earth essentially coming to Mars. And so we're kind of getting the perspective of the humans, but also the Martians. And you're kind of learning how like the humans think it's like this big deal that they are coming to Mars, and the Martians are like, bro, what are you doing here? Why are you here? We don't really care. And so the humans don't really know how to react to that. The Martians also have telepathy, so some of the Martians know when some of the humans are coming. There's just a lot of varied stories in here, and I'm actually really enjoying this. I feel like it's actually made me think. There was one story or scene where it's like the 3rd or 4th mission of humans that are coming to Earth, and essentially one of the astronauts or soldiers or whatever you want to call it, he kind of goes rogue. But it's because he actually realizes the beauty of the planet, and he's just like, hey, like, we shouldn't be messing up their stuff. We should really be taking in like their culture and the way that they lived, even though it seemed like there was no Martians left there. And the rest of his crew just really couldn't get on board, you know. And I usually don't tab, but I found myself tabbing this place, and I found myself wanting to tab other things, but I just continued to read. And I just feel like it's interesting that there's still a lot of parallels to this book and what I think people should be able to take away from it and today's times. I feel like it's unfortunate that it just feels like as humans we just haven't learned our lesson, you know what I mean? I will also say that in the audiobook, this is all set in like 2030-ish. However, this edition that I have, it's set in like 1999, 2000. So obviously there's new editions that are coming out for the Martian Chronicles, and they keep jumping ahead in time to make sure that it feels like we're reading something that's happening in the future, because technically this was the future when it came out but it's not anymore. So I'm gonna try and finish this up tonight so we can wrap this up. The sweet baby angels are in the living room. They just really want me to pet them all day, and I get it. They're ladies of luxury, okay, and I love that for them. However, I only have 2 hands, so if I'm on my phone, both of them want to be pet. I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna work out, y'all. And they want to be pet like the entire day, and I'm just like, I can't. But I'm having a good time having them here, having a good time reading this, having a good time also on my Teen Wolf rewatch. That show is so good. I'm currently on season 2, like episode 7, And like the pacing is still there. The twists and turns are still there. The family dynamics and everything is still there. The friendship dynamics, everything interweaving. It's so good. But I'll see you guys in the morning with my final reviews and thoughts of this, and us finally wrapping this video up and having the amount of days that it took me to read these 3 books. Guys, I come to you finally done with all 3 of these books. I finished the Martian Chronicles this morning, day 14. 2 weeks to finish these 3 books. But you know what? I'm proud of it. And I'm happy to say that I enjoyed the Martian Chronicles a lot. This was definitely my favorite book out of the 3. There's actually a couple places that I tabbed in here, and I had mentioned before that there were some other places I had wanted to tab. So I figured might as well just start tabbing the small places, which is really rare for me. Hello, Mama. Hello. What's up? I have my little friend here. You can't see her on camera. I guess she heard me talking. She really just stares at me, and it's so funny because their dad, he's bilingual, but when he first got the dogs, he only spoke Spanish to them. So like when I speak English too fast, they kind of like cock their head to the side. Anyways, the book. So I had mentioned that some of the stories that were in this book were in the audiobook, and one of them was actually one of my favorite stories that wasn't included. And it actually explored the idea of Black people back on Earth, knowing that there was all of these people going to Mars. And it's in a time where Black people are starting to get rights, and the white people don't understand, like, you're finally getting rights and equal treatment. Why would you want to leave Earth? But at the same time, they're still like, boy, you can't leave Earth until you pay me my $50, you know? But the Black people are coming together, making sure everybody's debts are paid and heading on out of there. Okay, and so that story was really interesting to me. I feel like all the rest of the stories really did take place on Mars, but I actually liked the addition of that story. So I hate that like people who listen to the audiobook aren't gonna get that experience. I feel like they may have taken it out because it does use the N word with the hard ER, but again, I guess it's just kind of like the times that the story was written in, but I feel like it was a good story to include. And I always just feel like sometimes with sci-fi books, there's always just this parallel of things that happen in the present that's always just a little scary, especially when the book wasn't written recently. And there's a story in here where there aren't many Martians left on Mars, but they come to try to tell one of the humans a message. And so he starts to take out like this scroll to give him the message, and the human shoots him. And then essentially he's like, oh, I thought it was a weapon. I thought it was a weapon. And his wife was like, that clearly wasn't a weapon. Killing an unarmed alien just because he's different. And he had something that you thought was a weapon, but everybody else could clearly tell wasn't a weapon. Peculiar. And then it also kind of towards the end talked about like technology and how like science ran too far ahead with technology instead of really focusing on who was going to be running that technology. And you know, I was like, that sounds like something we're going through right now with Little Miss AI. So there's a lot in here that really resonated with me. I like the way the story was told. The audiobook narrator was great. There was this undertone of humor in some of the stories, which I really enjoyed. Some of it was like upfront humor, but then there's also just kind of this like undertone of almost being in on a secret, coming from just kind of making fun of humans, and again, like us really just not learning from our mistakes ever. And it's funny because some of the copyright of the stories in here were written in the 40s, and so it just tells you we are 80 years past this book being written, and I hate that it's still accurate in some cases. But I really enjoyed this. I think I'm gonna give it like a 4.5. I feel like it just didn't give me that like tingling sensation that a 5-star does, but I really did enjoy this. But overall, I'm very happy, and I'm glad that I had like a true win, even though these other 2 books weren't bad by any means. And just to recap my reading, I gave The Left Hand of Darkness 3.5. I feel like this might have been my biggest disappointment because they put this up there with like Dune as epitome of sci-fi, you know, and I get it, but also I did it. So 3.5, may not think about this again, but I'm so glad that I read it, and I think this edition of this book is beautiful. And then speaking of beautiful editions of books, this is my nice copy of Frankenstein. And since I read from like the mass market paperback version, I think I'm gonna donate that one and then keep this one since this one is so pretty. And I just realized that Jacob Elordi's version of Frankenstein with him and like Oscar Isaac and I think Mia Goth, their version of Frankenstein is coming to Netflix, I believe November 7th. So I'm so happy that I read this now so that I can kind of compare the story and have that fresh in my mind and compare it to the movie, because I also haven't seen any rendition of the Frankenstein movies. So super excited, so glad that I got through that. And then obviously the Martian Chronicles 4.5. Mr. Ray Bradbury has yet again impressed me. I definitely want to read another one of his books, because if I get one more that's like a 4.5, 5 stars, he goes into one of my favorite authors of all time. So love that. And overall, I'm so glad that I did this, because as someone who is a self-proclaimed sci-fi lover, I feel like me not having read some of these classics just like didn't feel right in my soul. And I am now 3 books closer to my 5-book goal of reading 5 iconic sci-fi for the year. So I need to figure out a way to squeeze in 2 more in the next couple of months so that I hit my goal. But if you made it to the end of this video, leave some type of like experiment emoji. So it can be like the little monster that they have, or maybe it's a scientist, or maybe it's a beaker. I think those emojis exist. And let me know down below, what is a like classic book that you've read and that you've actually enjoyed? And if you haven't read any classics, which ones are on your list and that you're interested in? And as always, if you made it to the end of this video, you are my absolute favorite. I don't know what that accent was, but I will see you in the next one. Bye.